Have you ever felt like you're running from your own life? That you're trapped in an invisible maze where every path leads to a dead end, every decision carries a new burden. We throw ourselves into an endless cycle, learning, working, accumulating, chasing definitions of success that the society relentlessly paints for us. We try to control every tiny piece, from our packed schedules to our social media interactions, believing that by holding everything tightly, we'll find happiness, peace, and a worthy life. But then a harsh truth slowly emerges. The more we control, the more insecure we become. The more expectations we pile upon ourselves, the emptier and more exhausted we feel. It's as if there's an invisible curse constantly lurking, a painful paradox. The more we yearn for peace, the more turbulent our minds become. The more we want the universe to reward our efforts, the more elusive our desires seem. Why is this so? Why does extraordinary effort lead to internal exhaustion? Is this a silent injustice we've unknowingly accepted? Imagine your mind as a lake. When we are anxious, fearful, clinging to every outcome, that lake becomes violently stormy. Waves of thoughts, emotions, and fears obscure the surface, preventing us from seeing the bottom, where the answers, the opportunities, and the very peace we crave reside. We get trapped in a toxic thought loop, where effort becomes a shackles, and worry becomes a familiar breath. Is there another way? A path that doesn't demand we fight life, but rather flow with it? Today, we won't talk about what more you need to do to achieve those things. Instead, we'll delve into an ancient Buddhist secret, a wisdom that has illuminated the path for millions seeking an escape from the mind's maze. A secret that challenges everything you've ever been taught about success and happiness. It's the secret to calming your mind, so the universe naturally rewards you. Not by force or control, but by realizing a profound truth about the nature of life, about the impermanence of all things, and the liberating power of letting go. Are you ready to uncover this secret, to transform the stormy lake of your mind into a clear mirror, reflecting everything you truly deserve? This is a story of a journey from chaos to peace, from clinging to freedom. A story that might change how you view your life forever. Long ago, in a small village nestled by towering mountains, where gentle rivers meandered through lush green fields, lived a young fisherman named Kaya. This village, though picturesque, lay right beside a wide, powerful, and ever-changing river. And it was on this very river that Kaya's destiny was shaped, and our story begins. Kaya was not remarkable in the way the world usually defines it. He was not wealthy, not powerful, nor did he harbor grand ambitions. His life was simple, revolving around one single thing, his wooden boat. It wasn't just a means of livelihood, it was his entire world. The boat, passed down from his father, had accompanied him through countless seasons of rain and sun, witnessing abundant catches and silent, fishless days. He loved that boat more than anything. Every plank of wood, every scratch on its hull bore the marks of time, of sweat and effort. Kaya painstakingly repaired it whenever it was damaged, repainting it when its colors faded. He poured all his heart, his faith, and even his identity into that boat. "I am Kaya," he often told himself, "the fisherman of this boat." He believed that as long as the boat remained intact, as long as it stayed sturdy on the water, his life would be secure, and his dream of a peaceful, abundant existence would never fade. Every morning, before setting sail, Kaya would gently caress the boat as if caressing a dear friend. He would whisper prayers, not for himself, but for the boat. He believed that was all he needed to control his fate on that impermanent river. It was an attachment, a clinging to an object, a concept, a form that he believed would bring eternal safety and happiness. He relentlessly strived to keep the boat perfect, without a single crack, without a single rotten spot. Because, in his mind, every flaw on the boat was a flaw in his life, a sign of potential loss. He didn't realize that this very mistaken view, this clinging to something tangible and constantly changing, was sowing the seeds for greater suffering later on. He had defined his very being through an external object, forgetting that his true nature, like all living beings, was one of non-self, a continuous flow, incapable of being confined or limited by any single form. And so, Kaya lived with that fragile yet firm belief, tightening his grip each day, becoming more dependent each day on the anchor of attachment. He didn't know that the river he loved held a profound lesson about letting go, a lesson that life would relentlessly test him with, until he was truly ready to listen. This is a story not just about Kaya and his boat, but about each of our journeys to find peace, as we strive to hold on to things that are, in essence, impermanent. Life, like the river Kaya traversed daily, is inherently impermanent. It flows ceaselessly, constantly shifting, carrying away the old and ushering in the new. At first, the changes came gently, almost imperceptibly. Kaya's beloved boat began to show the marks of time. A small piece of wood rotted from the salt water, a rope frayed and snapped after countless voyages through rapids. Each time it happened, Kaya's heart would clench. It wasn't just physical wear and tear, it was an erosion of his faith in permanence, in the supposed security he had so carefully built. He rushed to mend, to replace every damaged part. He believed that if he was just quick enough, meticulous enough, he could preserve the boat's original form, and with it, the feeling of safety it provided. He didn't want the boat to change because, in his mind, the boat was him. Every crack on its hull felt like a wound in his soul, a direct threat to the self he had so tightly intertwined with it. This clinging to a fixed form, a fixed state, had become an invisible burden on his shoulders. But the current of life doesn't wait for anyone's consent. Unexpected floods swelled the river, scorching suns beat down, and the boat, despite all Kaya's efforts, continued to transform. Years passed, and his boat, though still bearing the name Kaya's boat, was in reality made of constantly replaced planks. It was no longer the boat of its early days. It was a collection of new pieces, continuously patched together. Kaya began to feel suffering. The fear of loss, the fear of change, the fear of no longer being the fisherman of that boat consumed him. He became obsessed with control. He couldn't sleep soundly. Every ripple on the water startled him. His mind, once a clear lake reflecting the sky, now became a turbulent sea, constantly churning with worries, calculations, and the dread of the future. He blamed the river, the storms, even fate itself. He felt this was an utter injustice. Why, after all his efforts, did peace elude him? Why, the more he tried to hold on, did things slip further from his grasp? The accumulating tension built an invisible wall between Kaya and the world. He no longer saw the beauty of dawn, no longer heard the birds sing. He saw only scarcity, threat, and the obsession to do in order to have, to control in order to exist. He had equated his self-worth with the integrity of his boat, with the stability of what he tried to hold on to. This was the mistaken view that Buddhist wisdom reveals. When we cling to impermanent things and assign them a fixed self, we inevitably create suffering for ourselves. And then that fateful night arrived. The biggest storm Kaya had ever witnessed descended upon them. Lightning tore through the sky, colossal waves seemed to swallow everything. Kaya, with every ounce of his remaining strength, fought back. He gripped the oar, straining to hold on to the boat that was being tossed relentlessly. Every plank creaked, every splinter flew into the dark night. He had used all his will, all the might of the self he believed could control. He screamed, pleaded, desperately fighting something that could not be fought. When dawn broke, the silence was eerie, broken only by the gentle lapping of waves on the shore. And there, beside him on the sand, his boat, his pride, his livelihood, and his very identity, was nothing but a wreckage, splintered wood drifting aimlessly. Kaya collapsed, his eyes blankly staring at the sea. The pain of loss consumed him, heavier than 1,000 tons of stone. He thought, I have lost everything. I am nothing without this boat. My life is over. It was in that moment of ultimate despair, when all attempts at control dissolved into dust, when attachment shattered, that a profound stillness enveloped him. That moment was one of utter helplessness, of raw suffering, yet it was also an invisible door quietly opening to an awakening. In that moment of ultimate despair, when everything seemed to crumble, when the pain of loss was too immense to bear, Kaya closed his eyes. He no longer had the strength to scream, no longer the will to cling. He surrendered. And it was in that act of complete surrender that something remarkable happened. The waves still lapped, the wind still blew, but in his mind, everything became strangely still. The storm outside raged on, but the storm within him had subsided. When he opened his eyes, the dawn had broken. The first ray of sun illuminated the sand, where the fragments of his old boat lay scattered. And there, right beside him, a serene old monk, with kind eyes and a contented smile, stood quietly watching. The monk offered no words of comfort. He simply looked at Kaya, then at the wreckage, and spoke. "Son, are you suffering because the boat is lost, or because you clung to something that could not last forever?" The monk's question was like a sharp blade, cutting through the fog of pain and mistaken view that had enveloped Kaya's mind for so long. Kaya looked up at the monk, the question echoing in his head. Clung to something that could not last forever? What did he mean? The boat was everything to him. The monk calmly stepped forward, picking up a small piece of wood from Kaya's boat. "Look at this piece of wood," he said. "Then look at that piece, and that one too." He pointed to the fragments, then to the pieces of wood that Kaya had replaced over the years. "When you replaced a rotten plank, was that still your boat? When you patched a hole, was it still itself? If every single piece of wood on your boat had been replaced with new wood, then what within it was still Kaya's boat?" Kaya suddenly awakened. A flash of insight illuminated his mind, piercing through the darkness of suffering and the mistaken view he had held for so long. He realized he had clung to the idea of his boat, an image, a fixed definition in his mind, not the boat itself, which had been constantly changing. His boat, like everything in this life, was inherently impermanent and anicca. It was constantly transforming, continuously flowing. Every cell in his body, every thought in his mind, every relationship around him, all were a continuous flow, nothing was truly fixed. This was the twist of understanding. The monk continued, his voice resonating like a temple bell. "Your suffering did not come from the boat sinking. Your suffering came from your attachment, upadana, to something that is, by nature, impermanent. You tried to hold on to what cannot be held, to control a ceaseless flow. You defined yourself, anatta, through an external object, and when that object shattered, you believed that you too had shattered." Kaya looked at the fragments on the sand, and for the first time, he saw them not as symbols of loss, but as clear evidence of the truth of impermanence. The boat had fulfilled its purpose. It had transformed, returned to the sand, to the water, to nature. And he, Kaya, the one who had steered it, was still there. He was the fisherman, not the boat. He was the flow, not a fixed point. This awakening was not an electric shock, but a profound release from the depths of his soul. The pain was still there, but it was no longer the pain of despair. It was the pain of realization, of shedding an invisible burden that had weighed him down for years. He had realized that what he tried to hold on to the most was precisely what caused him the most suffering. It is only when you realize the non-self nature of all things, and of yourself, that there is no separate, unchanging self to cling to, or anything mine forever, that you truly become liberated, the monk said, his voice filled with compassion. You do not disappear, you become more. You are no longer limited by the form of a boat. You become part of the great flow of life, free like the wings of a butterfly, adaptable like water, and vast like the boundless ocean. In that moment, Kaya not only saw his boat, but he saw himself more clearly than ever before. He had experienced the true liberation that comes from letting go of attachment to the self and to what is mine. It was not an abandonment, but an emancipation, opening a new space in his soul where peace could reside even amidst the storm. He had seen the light of Buddhist wisdom, not as dry doctrine, but as a path to true freedom from the suffering he had created for himself. The story of Kaya and his boat is not merely an ancient parable. It is a mirror reflecting our own lives as we cling to our boats in an impermanent flow. You see, we often define ourselves by what we possess, the roles we play, or the expectations others place upon us. We cling tightly to stable jobs, familiar relationships, reputation, or even memories of the past, both good and painful. We believe these are anchors, keeping our life's boat from drifting in the vast, volatile sea. But then, just like Kaya's boat, these anchors are not permanent. Jobs can change, relationships can fracture, memories can fade, and our own bodies are constantly aging. When the storms of impermanence strike, a job loss, a separation, an unexpected health issue, we feel crushed, we feel like we lose ourselves. That pain is real, it's bitter. But Buddhist wisdom illuminates that such pain doesn't come from the external event itself, but from our attachment, upadana, to something inherently impermanent, anicca. It's the pain of a mistaken view, when we confuse ourselves with the things we own, or what we've experienced. Just as Kaya learned, true peace isn't about keeping the boat from ever sinking. That's an illusion we often chase. Real peace is the ability to accept the flow of life, understanding that your essence isn't the boat, but the navigator, adaptable, resilient, and always capable of finding a new path, even when the old boat is gone. It's about letting go of absolute control over how things must unfold, and trusting in a larger current, beyond our limited comprehension. When you learn to calm your mind, just as Kaya found stillness after the storm, you will begin to see things you previously missed. You will no longer be caught in the of anxiety and clinging. You will more clearly perceive the opportunities that always exist around you, the people willing to help, the new paths that before, in your haste and obsession with control, you never noticed. Buddhism doesn't encourage you to abandon effort. On the contrary, it encourages you to act, but with a mind of mindfulness, sati, and concentration, samadhi. When your mind is calm, you will make clearer decisions, act with greater wisdom. That is when you truly create a positive flow in your life, not by forcing or resisting, but by harmonizing with the universe's rhythm. The universe doesn't reward your stress or your fear. It simply responds to the energy you emit. When you radiate an energy of peace, trust, and acceptance, you will attract what corresponds to it. Kaya didn't find a new boat immediately. He found inner liberation first. From that place, he could clearly see the underground spring on his barren field, recognize the types of plants suitable for his soil, and open his heart to receive help from his neighbors. His life changed, not because he recovered his old boat, but because he changed his perception of loss and attachment. This is the profound beauty of Buddhist wisdom. It doesn't promise a life without storms. It shows you how to become a calm navigator, capable of steering your life's boat even through the most turbulent gales. It doesn't teach you how to control the external, but how to free yourself from within. The story of Kaya and his lost boat isn't just a tale of wreckage. It's a profound reminder of the power of impermanence and the true liberation that comes from letting go of attachment. It shows us that when you quiet your mind from the noise of worry, of control, and of relentless expectations, you don't just find inner peace. You open a door, a clear channel for the universe to deliver the rewards you truly deserve, not by fighting or forcing, but by seeing clearly, accepting, and embracing what has always been present. And now take a moment, breathe deeply, and be honest with yourself. What boats are you clinging to in your life? Is it a job that no longer brings joy? A relationship that has run dry? Or an image of yourself that you're exhausted trying to maintain? Are you ready to embrace impermanence, to release the burden of control, and to find true strength in adaptability, resilience, and inner peace? If this story has touched you, if it has sown a seed of contemplation in your soul, we would love to hear from you. What are your thoughts on the lesson from this story/parable? What resonated with you the most? Have you ever experienced an aha moment or a profound realization in your own life? Please share your moment below. We believe your story can inspire many others. Are there any other Buddhist parables or metaphors you'd like us to explore in future videos on Buddha's pathway? Please leave your comments below. Together, we will continue our journey on Buddha's pathway, the path leading to true wisdom and peace.